We're seeing something new in China. Carbon emissions are finally dropping, not because of a crisis, but because renewables are actually taking over. Does this signal a real shift in the global climate effort?
It's May 16th, 2025. For years, China's emissions just kept going up, right? Industrial growth, cities expanding. Basically no slowdown unless something major happened, like a recession or the pandemic.
That's spot on. What's changed now is that China's emissions have dropped about 1% over the past year. Even more, 1.6% just in the first quarter of 2025. The interesting part? Electricity demand still grew by 2.5%. So, are we finally seeing clean energy outpace new demand?
The data does seem to suggest that. China added 53.7 gigawatts of new power in just 2 months at the start of this year. Of that, 74% was solar, 17% wind, and only 7% coal. Coal's share actually dropped compared to last year. That's a big shift, isn't it?
Definitely. By February, for the first time, solar and wind together had more installed capacity than coal. Renewables now make up 43% of all power capacity. But it's not just the capacity. The actual generation of clean electricity jumped 19% in the first quarter, reaching 951 terawatt-hours. And solar alone? Up 48%, now at 10% of all electricity. Wind's at 13%.
So renewables and nuclear aren't just keeping pace, they're actually overtaking new demand for electricity. Coal's being squeezed out, and emissions from the power sector dropped 2% year on year. But is this a temporary pause, or could it be the start of a real, lasting decline?
That's the real question. Some experts are calling it a structural shift. Clean energy growth is now consistently ahead of demand. But the gap is still narrow. Emissions are just 1% below their peak. If demand jumps or policy changes, things could swing back. So what would it take to make these reductions stick?
It looks like continued policy support is crucial, along with upgrading the grid and handling any economic or geopolitical risks. Which types of renewables are driving the biggest changes here? Mostly solar and wind?
Solar is leading the way. China added 277.2 gigawatts of it in 2024, which is about 65% of all new capacity. Wind is now the top clean power source, generating 307 terawatt-hours in early 2025. These projects have pushed renewables ahead of coal in actual grid capacity, not just on paper.
What does this mean for the rest of the world? If China, as the biggest emitter, is peaking and now declining, does it change the whole global picture?
It really matters. Because of China's size, its actions set the pace for global climate goals. The scale of its renewables rollout, faster than the US or Europe, could drive down costs everywhere. That could push other countries to speed up their own transitions, right?
Exactly. Lower costs, more adoption, and maybe even tougher targets globally. But it all depends on China staying on this path. If the world's top emitter can cut emissions and keep growing, does that reset what other countries think is possible?
That's the test. The blueprint is there, but it comes down to political and economic will. Will other countries follow? And can China keep up this pace?
So in summary, China's emissions are falling for structural reasons, not just economic slowdowns. Renewables, especially solar and wind, are at the heart of this. The global impact could be huge, but we have to see if the trend holds.
Thanks for joining us as we tracked this major turning point in the global climate story. The big question now, will this be the moment the world pivots or just a brief pause? Stay with us.